It is a rare game that manages to lock you in from the first second of gameplay. It is even more rare to capture your attention before the photosensitivity warning has faded from view. And yet, from the moment you choose to launch Sektori, a relentless thumping bass grabs you by the shoulders and announces a simple message: you will not be able to put this game down. Sektori is a kaleidoscopic twin-stick shooter in the vein of Geometry Wars or Resogun. In fact, the developer is a former employee of Housemarque, where he helped make Resogun. Sektori is the genre heightened to a flow state nirvana, where a constantly changing arena and giant bullet hell bosses offer an endlessly high skill ceiling, but no run gets stale, because the game also offers a number of different irresistible upgrade paths. Throughout this year, I've played many games that have filled the screen with flashing lights and images, all while encouraging a sort of overstimulated passivity. And to be clear, I have enjoyed those experiences as well. But Sektori is a reminder that razor-sharp design and continuous split-second decision-making can induce a far more rewarding gaming trance. A commitment to making your best attempt a little better if you only play one more game. Welcome to the end of 2025, a hell of a year and a hell of a year for playing games. Through the haze of continuous industry layoffs, collaborations with human rights abusers, and AI cluster, a number of wonderful pieces of art still managed to push their way out the door and into our hands. This year saw a surge of inventive co-op triumphs, an unexpected bounty of gamified memoirs, and a number of technically accomplished AAAs that failed to create the same impression as smaller, shorter, weirder projects. But what else is new? Before we get back to the list proper, there is one more thing I need to do: establish my certified gamer credentials. I beat a lot of games this year, 60 at the time of recording. So, without further ado, here is every single game I rolled credits on or otherwise played to satisfaction if credits aren't a meaningful finish line. Hit it! It may seem a little damning with faint praise that Hades 2 only reaches number 9 on this list, and in a way, it is. The direct sequel to Supergiant Games' 2020 game Hades, Hades 2 suffers from a number of sequel-y problems. Its story isn't as emotionally engaging as the first, the character interactions are expanded but not revolutionized. It would be easy for me to list a number of small disappointments with Hades 2, which largely stem from me wanting another brand new world from a studio that's proven how successfully it can sculpt one. But what those complaints obscure is that every single run in Hades 2 is a joy, a nearly faultless mechanical experience that manages to teach you novel ways of playing well past the 50-hour mark. Enemies and bosses that feel overwhelming gradually reduce into observable patterns, branching trees of offered upgrades coalesce into exciting new playstyles, and NPCs spout nearly endless dialogue throughout. Only in Hades 2 can I die to a rocker diva Scylla the Sea Monster and not be angry for a second, because as soon as I get back home, I'm asking Nemesis to jump in the hot springs with me. The standard of visual quality in Hades 2 is just through the roof. The progression systems are nuanced and interesting. Kronos is a cool and menacing and seemingly insurmountable villain. It's easy for me to nitpick Supergiant's work because my bar for them is so high. But I put a full 70 hours into Hades 2, enjoyed nearly every minute of it, and I will be there day one for whatever they make next. Oh, to be scared in a new way. I play a lot of horror games. I like a lot of horror games, and yet with my experience, I think I've gotten to know most of their tricks. Something jumps out from a closet, something takes away your guns, something tells you that it's erased your save file. I don't go into many horror games expecting to be surprised. And then along comes a game like Dead Letter Department. I quite recently talked about Dead Letter Department in my video on digital horror. This is the game where you type out the unreadable sections of undelivered letters in an oppressively atmospheric office room. It is a simple game. No health bar, no inventory management, no meters going down or side quest list going up. But the mileage the game gets from this simple of a concept is just remarkable. I cannot believe how many different stories the addresses on an envelope can tell. One of my favorite things a horror story can do is warp the ordinary, take something incredibly normal and distort reality around it until even nondescript things become unnerving. By the end of Dead Letter Department, the most straightforward letter feels sinister. Dread leaks out of a suburban address. Secrets hide in the wrinkles of an envelope. The game is my favorite example of what an indie horror title can do. It presents a new idea and explores every dark corner of it. I imagine the Silent Hill franchise looks at Resident Evil with some level of jealousy. What's a Resident Evil game? Easy. Shambling monsters, inventory management, involved puzzles with gems and different colored keys, some invocation of Umbrella. What's a Silent Hill game? Well, that's the question, isn't it? Is it simply a low-hanging fog, a soundtrack that seems to play inside of your brain, repressed guilt, locked doors, hidden alien endings? Sure, all of those things. But what Silent Hill F understands, why I knew this game was operating on the correct wavelength from the first few minutes, is that Silent Hill rests on the ineffable, unsettling oddness of its characters. Overt villainy is easy, but unease, the feeling that something is off about this whole situation, is a much harder tone to strike. Hinako, a high schooler in rural 1960s Japan, lives in this unease. The feeling that something is wrong with her classmates and parents, with the whole culture, permeates the game. And this wrongness leads to unforgettable scenes of seemingly inexplicable behavior. Fear and murder and self-mutilation are all present and yet often treated with a detached coldness that leaves us as players adrift. The most exciting thing to me about Silent Hill F is just that there is so much to talk about here, so many standout sequences and interesting character beats. While the game doesn't reach the towering heights of Silent Hill 2 or the environmental excellence of 3, it also doesn't stand in either game's shadow. I'm so glad that F is interested in testing that question, what is a Silent Hill game, and finding a bold new answer. I will actually be arguing for a specific sequence from Silent Hill F as one of the best moments of the year in the massive awards episode of MinMax, the gaming podcast I'm on. MinMax truly means so much to me. Because of the podcast, I went to Summer Game Fest this year, and I also went to freaking Brazil to Latin American Gamescom. It is kind of the thing that keeps me sane when I've been researching something like the Nuremberg trials for weeks on end. Anyway, back to the list. The second of the indie sequels on the list, Citizen Sleeper 2 accomplishes what Hades 2 struggles to do: take the basic mechanics of the first game and twist them using familiar verbs to tell a story altogether its own. Citizen Sleeper 2 is built on the same dice system as its predecessor. Each day you're allotted a number of pre-rolled dice, which you can then spend on different activities. Once you're out of dice, you can't do anything. So in order to keep up with the game's multitude of doomsday clocks, you'll need to roll on activities you'll likely fail, a rich metaphor for anxiety, disability, the perils of capitalism, you name it. This was all in the first game. But what 2 does so well is pairs that need to constantly move forward with a meditation on the highs and lows of labor itself. In Citizen Sleeper 2, you'll need to constantly engage in contracts, discrete projects that become your sole focus for a couple in-game days. These can be as simple as looting a derelict spacecraft or as complex as staging a mutiny, but each requires intense, devoted work from your character and their companions. It is exhausting, stressful, and resource-intensive. But within nearly all of them lies some hint of beauty and wonder, a pride in your own craft and the skill of others. It's a testament to the skill of the game's writing that the intrinsic satisfaction of a job well done can exist alongside the ever-present themes of exploitation and cruel economic systems. Citizen Sleeper 2 is a game about carving out spaces for the humanity of yourself and others, to work, to create art, to live. One of the nice things about making your own top 10 list is you get to cheat. Who defines what 10 means, or games, or top? Me, in this case. And I'm adding as number 5.5, the best expansion I played this year, Lies of P Overture. In the years since Lies of P's release, the game has only grown in my regard. It is easily the best non-FromSoft game made in their signature style, and the one that most meaningfully expands on the established formula. And in the tradition of FromSoft, this year's generously sized expansion, Overture, represents an elevation of all the very best elements of that already phenomenal base game. Overture's environments just rock. A zoo overrun by mutant animals, a decrepit carnival with mechanical carnies still going through the motions. Its bosses are grotesque and wonderful. The first is a particular highlight in which midway through a fight with an elephant carcass, a sort of giraffe neck bursts out of its skull. The new weapons are all a blast, like a rocket spear that will physically propel you through each level. And after I somewhat dismissed the base game's narrative, Overture managed to make me sit up and pay attention to that story again. You're not just a Souls-like to me, Lies of P. You're a real boy. Consistency may be an overrated value in games. And look, I get the appeal. My whole game should be good, you might say. I want every aspect of the story to work. I want to create a cohesive experience. And to that, I respond, Death Stranding 2. Death Stranding 2 stumbles as often as its protagonist. The early stages of the game are easy enough to be uninteresting. The story, though as exposition-laden as ever, struggles to introduce enthralling concepts. Death Stranding 1's thematically resonant, de-emphasized combat has been replaced with non-lethal heavy machine guns and rocket launchers. And yet, when Death Stranding 2 works, it works like nothing else. Much of this is due to the staggering art direction and world design, cresting a hill and walking down into a green valley, wandering along a shoreline and seeing long abandoned apartments sunk into the riverbed. My favorite moments of the game, in all likelihood my favorite gaming moments of the year, all took place on the massive mountain in the center of the map. On the first hike up the mountain, my vehicles ran out of charge, my canteen ran out of water, my Sam Porter Bridges laboriously pulled himself one footstep after another up the barren and snowy expanse, pausing to huddle in the corner of an unpowered shelter in a bivouac and regain even a trickle of stamina. And then, later, I returned to that mountain, determined to reach the summit, scrambling over a ridge, to find the moon at 100 times its normal size, staring right back at me. Death Stranding 2 is, for me, made out of these moments, this attention to minutia, the strangely cozy feeling of picking up a crate and throwing it in the back of your truck without having to navigate a menu, the hidden nightmares that may or may not occur anytime you're on board the Magellan, the way Sam hops from one side of an incline to the other when you're walking on an uneven surface, the song on the soundtrack that goes absolutely nutso and only plays when you're in the easily missed VR missions. The experience of a Kojima game is watching a multi-million-dollar cutscene completely whiff on an emotional beat, only to minutes later get bowled over by a much more subtle, much more nuanced beat that was somehow landed perfectly. Low roar starts playing, and all is forgiven. Keep on keeping on. Time is a mechanic explored by many games, but none have done it in quite the way Despelote does. Set in Quito, Ecuador during the country's 2002 World Cup qualification, Despelote is freezing time for an entire city, capturing the moment in amber when every person, conversation, and TV program was laser focused on the same dream. And Despelote is also about being a child, so lazy afternoons wandering the neighborhood feel endless until you start trying to kick that can off a roof and realize that you're already late to pick up your sister. Time is core to Despelote's design. The timing of the conversations in the game, for instance, which feature some of the most naturalistic, overlapping dialogue I've seen in the medium, or in the time remaining in a football game before halftime, or the way time takes memories of 2002 and distorts them, painting them with a palette that can't be perfectly recreated. Despelote is a singular creation about a single moment in time, and it's about all the moments that come after, too. Look, I try to have good segues for this stuff, but it always feels a little forced, and so I'm just going to say it. I got a book published this year, and it's really cool, and I'm really proud of it. How a Game Lives is the book, and you can now get the retail edition in your local bookstores, ask your local library to stock it, or order it online. And somehow, I'm also already working on the next one. That one is called You're Not Overthinking It. You can pre-order it from the publisher right now. Links to both in the description. I'm an author now, maybe. It's pretty surreal. There are a number of impossible tricks that Consume Me performs. For instance, the whole game is based around the trick of crafting a narrative about an eating disorder out of genuinely fun WarioWare-style minigames without downplaying the severity of the core issue. Or the trick of an art style that looks incredibly rudimentary and yet is so funny and delightful that even doing repeated tasks is a thrill because you get to see that amazing animation of watering the houseplant one more time. Or the trick of depicting how something can affect your life without being your whole life, how joy and whimsy and growth can happen alongside pain and self-destruction, because that's just high school, baby. Consume Me is a hard game to recommend, not because it's hard to play. It's hard to recommend for the opposite reason, that it seems beyond belief that a game about the worst elements of adolescence could be so effortlessly charming and warm. And maybe what I admire most about Consume Me is its commitment to autobiography makes it a game about so much more than its core premise. How when playing it, you're not just exposed to a march of disordered eating, but a person whose problems don't resolve easily and whose coping mechanisms don't always align with our own, and whose self-image is still grappling with how her past affects her present. This is one of the year's games I've thought most about after finishing it. I hope, Consume Me will become a touchpoint for memoir-style games in the future, full to bursting with every element of the human experience. In working with MinMax, I've gotten a chance to play more review copies of games, getting a code a few days or weeks before something comes out, and usually I think no more than, oh neat, a chance to get a jump on this game. But this year, I had an experience I've never had before, playing a game before release and thinking, what is happening? Am I insane? Is this one of the best games I've ever played? Does anyone else feel this way? And that game was Clair Obscur, Expedition 33. Oh boy. Look, I have already spoken at extreme length about this game. I wrote an essay about it. I discussed it on Nebula with a bunch of other essayists. Over with MinMax, we did an 8-hour deepest dive on the game, and somehow that doesn't feel like overkill. This sounds reductive, this is reductive, but the game feels like it deserves this level of analysis because nothing within Clair Obscur feels default, implemented simply because this is what games do. Every character feels purposeful in the story, the skills of each party member work as individuals and as a part of a larger group. The overworld is directed enough that you always know where to go, yet open enough that exploration and stubbornness can result in a delightfully earned sense of overpoweredness. And yes, turn-based combat designed by a Sekiro speedrunner does sound like someone created a game specifically for me, but what can you say? Sometimes you just get lucky. It's also hard to believe that Clair Obscur can introduce a story so full of concepts and proper nouns and make them so immediately meaningful. I've played lots of video games before. You have to earn me caring about your lore, and yet here, I do. Because it so immediately grounds these concepts and proper nouns in people, in unignorable metaphor and meaning. And unlike so many games with concepts and proper nouns, which start out feeling like they'll be about something and end up only being about themselves, Clair Obscur manages to hold both at once. This is our modern Majora's Mask, a game I predict we will collectively return to again and again because our need for art about grief will never disappear. Clair Obscur doesn't need to convince us to care about its lore. Clair Obscur has sculpted its lore around the most core of human emotions. It is a story about the meaning of stories, art about the power of art. It's just the f***ing best. And then, is there something better? Something better than the f***ing best? I'll tell you, I'm just not sure. I know it'd be a cop-out to award a tie to a #1 spot, and I'm not doing that. But this choice is tearing me apart, man. On one side is the radiance, the feeling, and the choices of Clair Obscur Expedition 33, and on the other side is Hollow Knight Silksong. Part of that divide is how the game's brilliance presents themselves. Clair Obscur is something that is immediately, wonderfully impressive. The opening cutscenes are huge and dramatic, the combat is instantly cool looking, it presents itself all at once as something you should be paying attention to because this story will do things. And then it does. And upon replay, maybe those big moments hit a little less hard and the combat is a little more repetitive, but there's still enough foreshadowing and character work that you stay interested for maybe a whole second loop through the game. This is not how Silksong feels. Silksong starts like a lovely, polished follow-up in a genre we're all familiar with. And the ways it begins to differentiate itself, its shocking difficulty, its lower key, more cohesive world design, don't cause the same big reactions as a cutscene-heavy, dramatically acted adventure. Your first playthrough of Silksong, though hopefully full of wonder and discovery, may be something you drag yourself through, each checkpoint claimed in spite of the game working so hard against you. And then, you might start it again. Something pulls you back to see if maybe you've improved at all, or to test if you can navigate the world more quickly, or maybe it just feels weird that you didn't love it quite as much as Hollow Knight. And you start playing again, and suddenly every frustration has been replaced with just the most gorgeous game design. Every fight feels like a dance. The world is so artfully stitched together. Hornet seems to move at the speed of thought. Every boss is tuned just right, lightning fast, but still allowing for self-expression within your moveset. And when you're not dragging yourself along, you think about the thematic relevance of the idea that you once did drag yourself along, and the game becomes about perseverance and mastery in the same way that some of the most important games to me are about perseverance and mastery. Silksong has so much faith in you, the player, that the simple act of playing it, not watching a cutscene, not reading its lore, but just playing it, is a moving experience. It is remarkable that someone would build a game like this and trust us to see the grand vision holding it together, but I have. And I did. There's something I want to tell you about the video you're watching right now, and that is that it's the 100th proper video on this channel, the 100th essay I've made. My first essay was published on October 23rd, 2018. It has been 2,606 days between then and now. Between then and now, I've quit my day job. I have paid for my own health insurance. I have lived in 3 different houses. I have turned 30. I have got married. I've written, I'm going to say, probably around 500,000 words. I've spoken to you here and on podcasts in Boston, Oslo, and Brazil, through a written book and from my local library. And for 5 of those 7 years, I've also been working with Nebula. Wait, yes, this is kind of a sponsor, but I promise it'll be worth your time. I'm not just selling you something. My first video working with Nebula was the one on Roller Coaster Tycoon 2 in June of 2020. Since then, they have been the sponsor of nearly every essay I've made. On Nebula, I just have fun. I've made cooking videos with my then girlfriend, now wife. I've done essays on stuff not heavy enough for the main channel. Somehow I've released even more writing about Resident Evil 4. This job, for me, falls in that magical spot of something I didn't know existed and yet simultaneously seems like the thing I've been training my whole life to do. I love working on this stuff. I love writing. I love being directed by my passions. And so often, in passion-led places like this, the love for the work is undercut by the exhaustion of everything surrounding it. A contract screws you over. Someone just forgets to pay you for 18 months. It is genuinely a miracle that I have never felt that with Nebula. In fact, this December, the whole damn website just decided we don't need to be charging this much. We can actually be less than $3 a month because that is just a better price. It'll let more people in the door. This December, like the past 3 Decembers, I've made a big ol' companion to my year-end video. Over on Nebula, you can see me chatting about my favorite books of the year, my favorite movies, games that just didn't make the cut. It's great, it's fun, it's a chance for me to tell you about my obsessions so they can become yours too. It and all my other essays and everyone's other essays on Nebula can be yours for just $30 a year with my link in the description. And whether you sign up for Nebula or not, I want to thank you for being here, for watching these videos, for allowing me to do this thing that I do. To the people who have been here since my very first video on Night in the Woods and Tacoma and workers' rights, to the people who found me this year, maybe through this video, to the friends I've made, the people I've connected with, the people who have been moderating a Discord server for more than half a decade, to everyone who has ever stopped me to say hi in public. This job could be a very lonely, very isolated thing, but it doesn't feel like that because of you. So now, if you'll permit me a second wildly self-indulgent montage, here is every one of those 100 videos alongside every single one of you who has ever given me a single dollar on Patreon. Your support means more than you could ever know.